So we're on the back of the 1.2 notes. And again, make sure you are taking notes because you will be submitting photos of all of these at the end of the period for your participation credit for today. What we now need to look at is changing fractions into decimals. And this is actually going to be really easy. All we're going to do to change fractions to decimals is divide the numerator by the denominator. To change fractions to decimals, we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator. We are going to do some division. To change fractions to decimals, we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator. So we're going to do a bunch of these. First one I'd like to take a look at is 1/4. I want to go do the problem 1 divided by 4. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to go use my calculator. If you don't have your calculator with you right now, push pause, go get your calculator. By the way, make sure for this class you have an actual calculator, not just your cell phone, because when we have quizzes and tests, you will not be allowed to use your cell phone as a calculator, because your cell phone can also do other things like send messages to people, and we can't be doing that during tests or quizzes. So make sure you get a calculator. And let's see what we can do. 1/4. 1 divided by 4 on the calculator should give me 0.25. 0.25. I'm going to write this as 0.25. Or I suppose you could also just say 0.25. Either one. Next problem. I'd like to take a look at 2/9. Go to your calculator and type in 2/9. And something a little weird should happen here. What strange thing happens? Well, when you do 2 divided by 9, you've got a whole lot of 2's there. 0.22222222, and so on. And it keeps going. And if my calculator didn't stop after this 2, there'd be even more 2's. Do you remember the shortcut way of writing something like this? This 2 repeats. And I'm going to show that it repeats by writing this as 0.2 with a little bar over it. That little repeating bar means that 2 is going to keep going on forever. Before we go on, every type of fraction, when we change it into a decimal, can be classified as one of two things, either a terminating decimal or a repeating decimal. In number 1, this decimal stops. The word terminate means stop. There was a movie called The Terminator. He stopped things. We're going to call this a terminating decimal. Please add this into your notes after that first example. This is a terminating decimal because it just stopped. As opposed to what's going on in number 2. Number 2, this decimal is not stopping. This is going to go on forever. 0.22222222222. I can't actually read them all. I'd be talking forever. I call this a repeating decimal. And you are going to need to know those two names. Terminating decimals stop. Repeating decimals go on forever. Make sure you get those two words in there. And those are the only two options. Every fraction, when we make it into a decimal, will either terminate or it will repeat. Okay, 2/3. Type this into your calculator. 2 divided by 3. There is something really strange happening here. Not all calculators are going to say this, but my calculator does and yours might. Mine says 0.666666666 and then a 7. Here's the trick. This does not actually end in a 7. My calculator is actually trying to be kind of smart, even though it's kind of weird that it's giving me the 7. What the calculator is doing is actually some rounding. The calculator is actually like 0.6666666 and so on. It's actually trying to round. If we do some rounding, this 6 over here tells me this 6 gets rounded up to a 7. That's why it's saying 7. I don't really have a 7 there. I really have a 6 and then another 6 and then another 6. It keeps going on forever. Ignore the 7. We are going to write this as 0.6 repeating with my repeating bar over there. And I'm going to call this a repeating decimal. Okay, next one. 88. No, not 88. Let's not do that. Let's do 83 divided by 99. Go to your calculator. Let's get a decimal from that. I think your calculator should be saying 0.83, 83, 83, 83, 83, maybe an 84 at the end. That's okay. First question for you. Is this a terminating decimal or a repeating decimal? Sure looks repeating to me. And again, that 4 is kind of like the 7 in the previous problem. It's not really there. It came about from some rounding. I'm going to go label this as a repeating decimal. And now I need to write it out. How exactly am I going to write this? I need to show that both the 8 and the 3 are repeating. So I'm going to say 0.83 with a repeating bar over both the 8 and the 3, just like that. Next one, 1/6. Take a moment, go to your calculator, get a decimal. It should give you 0.1666667 or something sort of like that. Again, remember the 7 doesn't count. That comes from doing some rounding. Is this terminating or is it repeating? Sure looks repeating to me. And how can you write this? Okay, so I need to show that the 6 repeats, but the 1 doesn't. I'm going to write this as 0.16 with the repeating bar just over the 6, not also above the 1. If it was above the 1, it would mean, actually, what would it mean if instead I wrote 0.16 with the bar over both of those numbers? It would mean 0.1616161616 and so on like that. Okay, next. Time for some mixed numbers. 4 and 7/8. Now, there's an easy way to turn this into a decimal and a harder way. The harder way involves you doing like 8 times 4, and then that answer plus 7, and then doing that divided by 8. We don't need any of that. Here's what we can do instead. I'm going to ignore the 4. I'm going to find the decimal for the fraction, and then I'm just going to stick the 4 before it. Let me actually write that down, and I would like you to copy this into your notes. We're going to find the decimal. for the fraction. And then we're just going to stick the whole number before it. Stick the whole number before it. Take a moment and get that copied down. So, I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to go do 7/8. Okay, 7/8. 7 divided by 8. I am getting 0.875. But my question wasn't 7/8. It was 4 and 7/8. So all I'm going to do is stick a 4 before the decimal place. Instead of saying 0, I'm going to say 4. I'm going to say 4.878. That's all I'm going to do. Don't make these harder than they should be. Okay, so what is this? Is this terminating or is it repeating? It should be terminating. It just stops after the 5. Terminating. Okay, next, let's do 5 and 5/6. You know what? I think you can do this. Go take a moment and change that into a decimal. So I'm going to go to the calculator. I'm going to do 5 divided by 6. That looks like 0.83 repeating with the repeating bar just over the 3. But don't forget about the 5 that was out front. I'm going to say 5.83, repeating bar over the 3, just the 3. Okay, I think this should be an obvious question now, but what is it? Repeating or terminating? That 3 repeats. This decimal is a repeating decimal. Okay, 2 more. 3/7. Type that into your calculator. Let's get a decimal for this thing. Type 3/7 into your calculator. Okay, so when I go do 3 divided by 7, 3 divided by 7, let's see here. Let me start copying this down. 0.428571429. This is kind of weird. What do you think? Terminating or repeating? Let's see. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to ignore that 9 at the end, because that could come about from some rounding. Let's see, 0.428571. 42, yeah, that 9 was really an 8 rounded up. We didn't really see the whole thing repeat, but if our calculator went on beyond that many spaces, we would see it repeat. I'll show you that in just a moment. First of all, I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this repeating, and I'm going to write it like this. If you're not convinced of this, let me show you something. Okay, so I'd like to take a look at that fraction 3/7, where I kind of saw what was going on my calculator, but I wish I was able to see more decimals. This website's called wolframalpha.com. We're not going to worry too much about that, but it will let me convert a fraction to a decimal and show many more decimal places. The command to do this, don't worry about actually doing this, just sort of watch. I'm going to do 3/7, and I want to do this to, oh, I don't know, maybe 100 decimal places. See what it comes up with. 0.428571, 428571, 42857. Oh, I hope you see it's repeating there. I really now see that 428571 repeating over and over and over again. Even though I couldn't quite tell everything from the calculator, I can definitely see that it's repeating here. Okay, so hopefully you're convinced that, yeah, this is repeating. One last one, 26 over 29. Let's see see here. 26. Go to your calculator. Let's get a decimal for that. 26 divided by 29. Ew. This doesn't look terminating. I think it's fair to assume that if your number fills up the entire screen, it's not terminating. Do you see it repeat? I don't either. However, if we looked at more digits, we would see it repeat. Let's take a look at this to way more digits than what I have right now, and let's see if we can find this. If it actually repeats, let's see if we can find the pattern here. Okay, so again, I want to use that website Wolfram Alpha to look at the decimal for the fraction 26 over 29. 26 over 29. And you know what? Let me go out to like 500 decimal places. Let's see here, 26 over 29. Okay, here's what I want to see if you can do. Can you look at this and tell me, actually, can you find where 896551 starts up again? Let's see. Oh, this is a long repeating decimal. Oh, wait a minute. 896551724. Yeah. You will not see this on your calculator because your screen only goes out so far. And therefore, I couldn't give you something like this on a test or quiz. So don't worry about this too much. But I did want you to see that any fraction will repeat or terminate. But the repeating part you might not see right away. You might need to use more places than what you see on your calculator.